there, welcome to Words That Do Things. I'm your host Peter Castor, and today we're going to talk about our final project for Business Writing English 245. I imagine some of you are probably still working on your multimedia technical presentation, which you will upload to our Blackboard site or email to me by the end of today. But I want to get started on doing some brainstorming and some organization for our next project. So recognize with this project you need to identify a local real problem, its causes. You need to identify your target audience, the people or person who can make changes based on your recommendations. And then you need to fully research the problem, describe it, its background, point out what are the various factors that cause this to be a problem and for whom, which means then all the stakeholders. So not just the person or people who can make changes based on your recommendations, but all of the people affected by the problem. Then you need to propose solutions to the problem, and this needs to all rely upon evidence. Now, this can sound kind of confusing, and it can be, how is this business writing? Well, here's the thing. Like I said at the beginning, business writing is words that actually do things. They accomplish matters, and like I think I've said before, people say do what you love and the money will follow, and I've never found that to be true. People will pay you to solve problems, and most of the writing I've done in the business world is, here's a problem, what's the solution? So for example, we had an underutilized classroom space, and there is pressure on sort of having enough classrooms for all of our students each semester. So we took this classroom space and, well, we needed money to redesign it and then have more technology placed in it. So I wrote a grant proposal identifying this problem and proposing the solution of requiring about $10,000 worth of construction and then about $15,000 worth of computer technology. It was successful. The room has now been transformed into two incredibly highly utilizable spaces that feature 24 computers, one for each student plus one for the professor, a couple of other display boards, and it's now one of our most sought after classrooms. So that's an example of identifying a problem and proposing a solution that addresses the causes of the problem. Obviously, the Out Loud memo identifies a problem. There's been some community pushback to our selection of a text, and identified the causes and the various stakeholders for whom this was a problem and proposed a solution. So problem, causes, solution. This is the way that a lot of business writing works. Now, the problem you focus on needs to be a local, real one. And how more local is it than USC Upstate? So let's take a look here. I'm taking a look at articles focusing on recent news at USC Upstate. More than 60 USC Upstate students plan to study abroad this summer, and that's fantastic. It's great for students to have international travel experience. However, I expect such travel is expensive. So one project would be how to raise money to fund student travel for international study. We'll click on More News. Upstate season ends with 4-2 loss to Longwood. The Longwood Lancers scored 4 runs. Upstate softball team in an elimination game from the Knoxville Regional. Now, you may not know, but the USC Upstate women's softball team is occasionally ranked in the top 25 over the past 10 years. Top 25 colleges nationally. And you didn't know that, and lots of people don't know that. So a project could be how to bring more attention to women's sports in general, to sports in general if you prefer, but most specifically to the USC Upstate softball team, which has proven so successful. How to bring more attention to it to drive attendance at games, ticket sales, and corporate sponsorship. All right, let's now go to the USC Upstate community. So we'll go to goupstate.com, the Spartanburg Herald Journal. All right, video appears to show Texas officer striking teenage girl, subpoenas pile up, fleeing driver dies, man convicted of homicide, sheriff office asks for help finding missing elderly woman. Boy, that's a lot of bad news. So either terrible times are upon us in Spartanburg, or news tends to the sensationalistic, often negative, to draw attention and sell newspapers. So what about a proposal for a local newspaper that focused on good news? That would be a totally legitimate business project or nonprofit project. And with regard to nonprofit, recall that something sort of driving attention toward or driving funds for USC Upstate would similarly be a nonprofit. But try not to focus too narrowly on for-profit business, because practices in the nonprofit industry, in academics, and also in politics often serve the precise same form that business writing functions, particularly with regard to memos, letters, email, and in this case, reports or proposals. Now, if you've walked around downtown, you've noticed a bunch of vacant buildings with signs on them, many of them for rent. So you could identify, how can we promote more local businesses to open in downtown buildings? So the problem, there's not enough local businesses in buildings that are currently vacant. We'd have to identify the audience for that. Is it going to be the city of Spartanburg, the Spartanburg Chamber of Commerce, the owners of one of those buildings themselves? That's up to you. But now we're talking about downtown business. So here we're going to click on the search, downtown business. All right, growth and hospitality tax funds benefits Spartanburg groups. 24 Spartanburg organizations are hoping to receive a portion of the city's hospitality tax. So there's organizations that are hoping to receive that. Here's another foundation. The Mary Black Foundation recently announced that it awarded over $1 million in grants to 10 nonprofit organizations. You can find out what some of those organizations are and be involved with them. Identify which of them might wish to propose another grant opportunity that might be available. We can look to Hubbub to become part of the Chapman Cultural Center. So Hubbub used to be an independent cultural arts and ideas nonprofit. It's now merged with the Chapman Cultural Center. If you do some research, you'll find out that the Chapman Cultural Center receives funds from the hospitality tax, as did Hubbub. So it's possible that the city will continue to fund the Hubbub division of the Chapman Cultural Center to the degree that they have before, or more likely, they will not, or they'll receive a slightly smaller amount. And as such, you might look for ways to, if you're interested in cultural arts and ideas, find ways to raise funds for, specifically for the Hubbub component of Chapman Cultural Center. All right, I'm continuing to scroll down, looking at options. Hopes revived for downtown music venue in Spartanburg. So the owner of the Magnolia building, which used to be a live music venue, it's laid dormant for years now. And we see that two Spartanburg folks are pitching a proposal to reopen the space, and they've made an offer. The building has one large venue and then a smaller component that was a guitar shop. Well, let's say, for example, you recognize that recording studios are increasingly privatized given the digital technology available, but that does not mean that every room is necessarily soundproofed. So what about looking at the possibility of renting part of that facility and opening up a local music recording studio? We'd have to write a proposal to the owner of the building, or perhaps the future owners of the building, and propose this business opportunity or joint business opportunity. I don't know, maybe that interests one of you. You can also go to WSPA.com, Fox 7 News, or CBS News, I guess. Let's see, Blue Ridge Community College opening Molding Tech Center, which leads us to, hey, does Spartanburg Community College have any opportunities for partnerships with local businesses? So these are things to think about. Now, of course, many of you work in local businesses, and can you identify any problems at your business or any of your cooperating businesses wherein you could propose a solution? And that could be the content of your business report. Now I've opened up the assignment itself. A proposal of action with justification. Now, it was assigned, of course, the first day of class. I reminded you to review it this Monday. And this video is designed to give you guidance through it. So you need to propose a feasible course of action to a particular audience. Your particular audience is the target audience, the people or person capable of making changes based on your recommendation. You need to provide clear reasoning, probably making use of at least 2 or 3 of the appeals, kairos, and logos perhaps being most important, and also providing justification, especially if you're asking people to spend money. You'll need to identify the relevant stakeholders. So while in the case of proposing the opportunity to open a music recording studio in part of the possible new building in the Magnolia Institution, the stakeholders would of course be the current owner of the building, the 2 folks who have proposed purchasing the building and surrounding area, and then of course local musicians who might make use of such a space, as well as stakeholders who would be involved as fellow investors or managers. This is a research paper, so plan on including a variety of the following. Now, at first it might not be clear why books, journal articles, popular periodicals, institutional materials, interviews, and surveys might be necessary, though perhaps you might see immediately that interviews and surveys might be necessary for your project. Is there going to be a book in our library about how to open a music studio in downtown Spartanburg, or how to propose a scholarship for students traveling abroad at USC Upstate? No, there won't be, but there will be books and journal articles about the notion of raising money for international travel, why international travel for education is necessary and valuable for students, or why local businesses are vital to a community. Some tips to help you. Describe in detail the situation that needs changing. You need to convince your audience that the course of action is necessary and justifies its enactment and likely expense. You'll also have to identify what's the best way to engage your audience. So perhaps if your proposal is for investors to support your proposed local business, then it may be that a letter identifying the proposal and its need is the sort of front document, and clarifying that this isn't yet a request for money, but instead a request for the audience's interest. And if so, then the subsequent documentation, 4 to 5 pages, single-spaced and times 12 point, block paragraphed, which means no indenting and a blank line between paragraphs, featuring relevant graphics or charts, addressing your primary audience in appropriate tone and style. The grading criteria are as follows: clearly defining a course of action, identifying the justification, having a clear, comprehensive, and complex thesis, defining and using field-specific terminology, introducing, using, and explaining specific evidence, describing the situation needing change, including, of course, its background, demonstrating how you know what you know, that's methodology, and that's citing sources, and the rest as well. Most importantly, demonstrating a clear sense of audience. Now, in terms of finding sources, with a local problem, you'll probably focus first on the Spartanburg Herald-Journal or other local newspapers, or if it's a challenge that your business or one of your partners is facing, then some interviews. Then, however, you will want to go to our library, and you'll go to our library catalog, and you'll search for keyword. I'm going to search for local entrepreneurship, and I'm going to spell it correctly. Alright, there's going to be lots of stuff about development in Africa, Asia, and Eastern Europe, because those have been some severely damaged economies, and micro-lending has proven a valuable strategy for encouraging local entrepreneurship. That said, I would encourage some of you to think about potential projects such as USC Upstate, not USC Upstate, the upstate of South Carolina, like all of South Carolina, like much of the rural South, like much of the nation, features lower income families working paycheck to paycheck who sometimes fall victim to predatory loan companies, payday loan companies, who charge enormous interest. So I can imagine a business or a nonprofit organization proposed which would provide much lower interest, small loans to these same folks. Now, in mentioning partnerships between public universities and their local communities, here's a book, Public Universities and Regional Growth: Social Economics and Entrepreneurship. economics of culture, new aspects and new trends. So if you are proposing ways in which, say for example, Hubbub or the Chapman Cultural Arts Center could try to increase their funding, well, the notion of the economics of culture being a text that could provide some background for that. Designing healthy communities. So again, this is about having a economically, culturally, physiologically healthy local community. So that's an idea as to how you can begin finding some sources. For some of you, most of your sources, if you're say focused on a very local problem featuring your own business, most of your sources may be interviews, perhaps a survey. For other projects, you may be proposing something locally, but you're drawing primarily from findings from the overall nation. It's just going to vary on your project. Now, as you write your document, certainly you're going to be thinking about it in terms of problem, background, causes, proposed solutions. And you're going to want to think about who your audience is. Again, the person or the people who can make changes based on your recommendations. That will then dictate the form of the beginning of your document, which may be a letter, an email, it may be it may look like a memo, and that's fine. Then you will want to reframe those headings I just identified, problem, background, causes, solutions, instead situated more positively and with language specific for your issue. So say, for example, the need for increased financial aid for USC Upstate students traveling abroad for international education. Right? Make that a little shorter to be an appropriate subheading. You want to think about the way you want your document to look at the end. Done. But for now, focus on what you already know how to do. Research, write, revise, edit. Now, don't hesitate to contact me if there's any way I can help you. Select your topic, identify how it's a problem, identify the primary audience, the other stakeholders, how you can research the background, the context, probably in chronological order for this problem, how you can identify solutions. Don't try to reinvent it. Identify where this problem has occurred elsewhere in the country, in the state, in the region, what the causes have been, and likely what solutions have worked in the past. So we're waiving the 48 hours needed for me to review your draft. From here on out, contact me at any time by phone or email, and we can discuss your project. If you're sitting in front of your computer, we can walk you right through it. So I'm looking forward to working with you on this. I know you can do it. It's going to be a lot of work between now and Wednesday to get this final project researched, written, revised, edited, formatted, document design, its presentation version as a multimedia document. But in the end, you're going to be proud of what you've done. You're going to have learned a lot. So good luck. I'm there for you, and have a great day.